In the past few years, national parks have become way too crowded, and if you've been to one, then you've likely had to deal with awful traffic, lines, frantically trying to get a parking spot, and missing out on things because you couldn't get reservations. On top of that, the rise of Taurons who don't know how to act around wild animals, and the recent death of Grizzly 399 in the Tetons is proof that these places have a people problem. Our parks now feel like crowded resorts instead of wilderness. The good news, though, is that most of the recent explosion in visitation is only at a few national parks, and a few places within those parks, places like Zion, Yosemite, Glacier, and Rocky Mountain. And you probably guessed it, we can blame social media. Once people realized that all they had to do was take pictures and cool videos of themselves in beautiful places, and they could make more money than a doctor, there was this massive profit incentive. In short, there was a digital gold rush. Everyone wanted to go to these places to be like their favorite influencers, become an influencer themselves, or at the very least look cool to their followers. And social media didn't just do this to national parks. Travel and experiences in general now communicate social status. Anyone can have nice looking clothes, or take out a car loan, or go to a university and get a college degree. But having free time and the money to travel and explore the world's most beautiful destinations is still a privilege that most people cannot do. The commodification of goods has made experiences and travel the new signifier of wealth and social status. Social media just gave people the platform to take advantage of this reality, as well as incentivizing people to post about these beautiful places. From my research and reading, I can tell others agree that this is the root of the problem, and people have been suggesting for several years now that photographers stop using geographical hashtags or geotags on their social media posts to help protect these places from being loved to death. However, the cat is out of the bag, and as much as you might want to, you can't stop people from posting about popular destinations. Okay, great. So what does all of this mean? Well, we clearly have a supply and demand issue. Too many people want to visit a few scenic areas of a few national parks during only a few months of the year. And in the free market, the simple solution would be to raise prices and immediately cut demand during peak visitation. But you can't do that here because this isn't the free market. These are public lands owned by the American people, and the government is supposed to manage these lands on our behalf. So I don't think it's fair to jack up prices when we all pay taxes for these places. Although, I do think getting rid of the annual passes and lifetime passes for senior citizens needs to be done. Everyone should have to pay the same price to get in, no matter how often you visit and no matter what your age is. Furthermore, the other free market solution of simply increasing supply to meet demand cannot be done. There is only one Yosemite Valley and there's only one Angel's Landing. We have plenty of public lands, but due to social media, people only want to visit the most popular ones to take selfies. Knowing all of this, the National Park Service implemented timed entry and reservation systems during peak season for some parks like Yosemite and Rocky Mountain, but also for certain hikes like Angel's Landing in Zion. In addition, in Zion, they do not allow private vehicles while the shuttle service is active during peak times. Now, timed entry is designed to spread out visitation, decrease traffic congestion, and make parking easier, and it certainly does that, but I don't love timed entry. In order to explain why, we need to talk about the history of the National Park Service and something called the dual mandate. In 1916, Congress established the National Park Service, with its mission being to conserve the scenery and the natural and historic objects and the wildlife therein, and to provide for the enjoyment of the same in such manner and by such means as will leave them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. Now, some people took this to mean that the NPS was given a dual mandate, an impossible goal of balancing conservation with public enjoyment. And National Park Diaries on YouTube did an entire video on the dual mandate. But the truth is, there is no dual mandate. In 2006, as Sean Smith, a former Yellowstone Ranger, points out on his blog, the agency clarified that when there is a conflict between conserving resources and values and providing for the enjoyment of them, conservation is to be predominant. I have to agree with Sean that it seems pretty clear to me that the primary goal of national parks is conservation. These are supposed to be unspoiled lands that are there for the public to enjoy, but not primarily there for the enjoyment of people. I interpret that to mean that we should do our best to keep them wild and let people enjoy them as wild places, not turn them into Disney World with more hotels, restaurants, gift shops, and parking lots. I think the national parks need to start leaning heavily towards conservation, and this is where my complaint with timed entry is. Timed entry is on a per-car basis, not a per-person basis, which tells me the problem isn't too many people in the parks, it's too many damn cars. If you want to spread out visitation and decrease visitation, then the only fair way is to ban private vehicles and force people to take buses, hike, or bike in. A timed entry system just creates a class system where some people are lucky enough to enjoy their private vehicle and others are stuck in shuttles or stuck hiking in. In addition, cars and the infrastructure for cars like parking lots, gas stations, roads, guardrails, etc. is in direct opposition to the primary goal of conservation, as well as being expensive for an already underfunded NPS. If there is less infrastructure to maintain, then these places will be conserved better and they will be cheaper to run. Place parking garages at the entrances to these parks, extend trails to the entrances, and force people to hike or bike in. If you really want to enjoy these beautiful wild places, then you can, but you don't get to do it in your massive gas-sucking RV. Now, a few months ago, I was in Grand Teton National Park with my family, and there was a massive sign that flashes at night how many bears, elk, and other animals have been killed by drivers this season. And recently, Grizzly 399, a 28-year-old mother grizzly bear, nicknamed the Queen of the Tetons, was struck by a car and killed. In fact, since 2009, 51 grizzly bears have been killed in this region by cars. And while exact statistics are hard to come by, there are between 100 and 300 animals killed in vehicle collisions each year in the Tetons. Between that and the obvious destruction that car infrastructure and car pollution brings to the area, lines of private vehicles are simply not compatible with the primary goal of conservation that the NPS is supposed to uphold. Imagine these places with extended hiking trails and biking trails with electric bike stations, including cargo bikes for serious backpackers and for other gear-heavy visitors. Imagine no lodges and no parking lots or gas stations. Imagine not hearing any road noise or cars idling or people honking at each other. Imagine Grizzly 399 still being around. They would truly be wild places again, without overcrowding, without loud vehicles, and without massive RVs blocking your views. Limited roads could be used for employees, deliveries, work crews, shuttles, emergency vehicles, and of course those with disabilities. We could simultaneously make these places cheaper to run, improve conservation, reduce animal deaths, and fulfill the park's mission to leave these places unimpaired for future generations. If the NPS tries to build more roads, lodges, and restaurants in these parks, they will only create more demand. But the demand won't be for a wild, natural, authentic place. The demand will be for a resort that only charges $30 to enter and is subsidized by taxpayers. These aren't meant to be resorts, and once you go down the road building all of that infrastructure, it will be nearly impossible to change your mind in the future and rip it out. The national parks are truly special places, and in the coming decades, as the population grows and more people spend their lives in cities, people will crave authentic experiences in truly wild places. And we can offer that to visitors right here in the lower 48. I'd love to know what you think, so please comment below.